This is again another challenging case, a 64 kilo. You can sort of see from the from the photograph here. This is a beach whale, an obese 10-year-old German Shepherd dog. So grade 1 open fracture, comminuted. If you do the fracture assessment, this is one that you need to be pretty scared of. Again, we've got a relatively small distal fragment. I suppose the typical tibial fracture. We've got segmental fractures in the fibula. So, you know, a challenging case, a 10-year-old obese open fracture. We need to earn our money here. So here, the same as before, you can see right leg fracture. The dog's in right lateral recumbency. This is the edge of the table along here, and the foot is hanging over the edge. Why hang the foot over the edge? Because by the time you've wrapped it in some sterile vet wrap, and I use a sterile glove and then some more vet wrap, the foot part is quite wide, and if you have that on the table, you just get a little bit of internal rotation of the tibia, a little bit of pronation. So I like just to have the toes off. But you can see here again we've got our distal wound. We've taken out the needles at this point because we've placed our screws. We've dissected in here, and our main 3/5 plate is in place. It's a 3/5 broad LCP, and I'm sure you've all got the luxury of having available the veterinary version of the LCP, and I think these are really pretty nice, where we've got the round hole. And again, this is a little bit of an older one, but now I would always put this round hole at the distal end, because it gives me more screws distally without having plate over the malleolus. But you can see this is contoured to fit the bone. It's got this sigmoidal shape, and I think you can also appreciate that there's a twist in this plate. And you know, obviously this is another of my mistakes. Why would I have another perfectly contoured plate? Because my fracture planning wasn't quite adequate, and I needed one hole different. So it's not all good fun. In this case, I was, even with a 3/5 broad plate, I'm really not comfortable, and so my plan was to place a cranial orthogonal 2/7 plate, and that's what we did. Here's the plate in place. So we've got this is a 2/7 LCP that we've just run cranially. It tunnels easily, the same as the other plate. And when you look at the post-ops, again, I think I've got a little bit of angulation in the craniocaudal, so it's not perfect. Rotation looks quite good, and when we look at in terms of axial alignment, I think it looks fine. This piece clearly hasn't been touched, and even though we've got this gap, that does not worry me at all. I know from experience that if we had wired or done some method of just bringing that back into place, we're not going to speed bone healing. This is going to heal more quickly because it's not under any strain. And one of my pet hates is the lasso of cerclage wire around a piece like this, because loose cerclage has zero biomechanical effect. It makes you feel good when you look at the post-operative radiograph, but it's got very much a negative effect on the soft tissue envelope. So I'm very comfortable with this piece sitting in this distracted position. That's where the muscle wants to hold it. You can see the orthogonal plate here. We've got just 2 screws, and I think when you first look at it, you think, well, this has to be a waste of time, putting in a tiny little 2/7 LCP in a 64 kilo dog when you've got 3/5 broad plate. But remember that the weakness in this 2/7 plate would be if the plate bent in a cranial or caudal direction. And with a massive 3-5 broad plate, it's never going to do that. So this plate is not at risk of failure from its normal bending method. What it's providing is that it's reinforcing the 3-5 broad against bending failure. And you've got to remember that this plate, when it's in this position, is being loaded across its width. And for those of you who are studying for your certificate, you'll be familiar with the area moment of inertia, and it's a product of the cube of this distance. So even this looks like, even though this looks like a very small plate, this is biomechanically very strong.